Women really are not that complex to understand, and the mystique that comes along with understanding them and in the aims to understand them is actually just psychological manipulation. And I genuinely believe that this is not just the feminist movement that's happened over the last 50 years. This is thousands upon thousands of years of psychological and spiritual warfare that women have conjured onto men, because that is what they're doing. They're just conjuring, they're summoning. It's a basic form of witchcraft. Any type of gaslighting or manipulation tactic is usually a form of witchcraft. And so you'll be surprised about how easy it is to spot this once you get to a certain point in your godlike mastery. And what happens is that you slowly begin to see that women really just want one thing, maybe two things. Technically speaking, they always want more and something else. But if you look at a biological level, they all want to just have fun and spend money that isn't theirs. I think that it's genuinely their belief that they firmly hold themselves accountable to spend the money of men. And they just want to have fun with the fun dudes. They want commitment from the man, and I'm speaking generally here, of course, 99% of women. That 1% of women that are actually godly women, that are warm, inviting, feminine, empathetic, yeah, that's great. But we're talking about the 99% of women here. And that is really just what they want to do. They want to have a good time and have no consequences for their actions. And I've seen this countless times, and I've even wondered how is it the case that some of these women who they know that I'm better than them, and I know that she knows that I know she's not as good as me, and yet they still play games. Why is that? Well, it's because they want to try to prove something. They have something to prove. They have a need for validation. And the ones that play the least games, in my experience, are often the attractive women who are insecure about themselves. It's true. And the reason for that is because, and don't get me wrong, the more I level up myself, the more that the beautiful women, I'm talking like the 8s to 10s type of women, have way more respect and appreciation for me than any of what you might call the mids, or the there's that meme of the 6'7", bro. It's so stupid. It's another psychological psyop just to make people fall into the culture that is being shifted before their eyes. But it is, just it is what it is. But anyway, that's neither here nor there for this video. But the point is that women who are attractive and know that you're attractive will treat you better than the women that aren't as attractive and know you are. Those types of women, oh my gosh, they will do anything and everything to ensure your downfall, man. And it's bizarre how many games that they would be willing to play simply because they want to feel like they're not, like they want to inflate their egos, right? They want to inflate their egos. And because you see the simps all around, right? The simps all around us, the cuck army of the feminists are constantly like, they're practically taking, those things to, oh my gosh, like a pump, like an air pump for like a basketball. When the basketball is flat and then you have to take the pump and you have to pump it up. Men and simps are constantly doing that. I don't even count them as men. I say that they're male. They're always doing this because they don't understand that women know that the good story is better than the truth. Women know this. They don't always know that they know this, but they know this. So the good story is better than the truth. But the truth is always going to be everlasting. The truth will outweigh the short-term stories, but short-term stories sell, right? This is one of the reasons why, even though on my channel or in my environment or whatnot, I have to cultivate a sense of, like, I don't like using the doomer language, okay? I'm not a doomer maxer by any stretch, but sometimes I'll put these types of titles because if I put happy titles, it's not a good story. It's not a good story, so people don't really buy into it, right? They don't, and it's kind of like women, right? Women, they want to buy into a good story. That's why, like, they have the most credit as far as the percentage of credit goes in the United States anyway. 80% of the credit that we have, like with credit card debt and all that, comes from women. 80%. You know, that's pretty astounding. Well, why is that? Well, because a lot of women need to feel like they need to buy things in order to have a sense of identity. They need to buy things in order to have this sense of feeling like they exist. And I'm not saying that it's wrong, but I'm not really saying that it's right either. Okay, I don't think that there's anything wrong with living luxuriously and giving a woman everything she wants or needs, right? But at the same time, if you do that, know the consequences. Okay, if you're going to give a woman everything she wants, don't expect her to know the difference between a want and a need. Okay, but if you give her everything she needs, but not everything she wants, well, then you're on more of an operating level as far as a man to ensure that there's everlasting qualities in your relationships. Because a lot of the times women, they simply behave in these ways in which they want to play these games because they want to feel like it's a chess game for superiority. Have you ever noticed that? Like, at this point, I just assume that the woman that is in front of me is trying to manipulate me in some way, shape, or form. And I'm not saying that you ought to manipulate her before she manipulates you, but you have to guide her before she starts trying to manipulate you. And that really just comes from the get-go. You have to place yourself almost on a pedestal yourself in front of her. And I'm not saying to actually do this. I'm not saying to not do this, but I'm just saying that that's what it kind of is like, is you almost have to place a pedestal on yourself, like for yourself, in front of her so that she gets the subconscious impression that you value yourself from the get-go. Otherwise, a lot of these women, even if you just express interest, because I've been thinking about this a lot, like, why are a lot of men are afraid to express interest in a woman? Well, it's because the woman, every time she feels like there's interest, she gets like high off the dopamine. And so men don't want to express interest because they don't want to feel like they're giving this woman power over him, or that they're just going to get rejected or hurt for no reason. Because a lot of women will do that, especially to attractive men. Like, women will reject attractive men for the simple fact that they're attractive. And if they have low self-esteem, okay, that's the important note to take there, because a woman will not reject an attractive man if she actually wants him and she has self-confidence to some degree. But it's not always about confidence for a woman. Like, everybody wants, this is what I get so irritated with the feminist stuff, is they always say, oh, I want to have confidence and I need to just be self-confident in myself. And they think that confidence is conflated with being able to shove phalluses up their pink palaces. And it's just like, that's not the way that this works. It's not the way that you actually get confidence. You get your confidence from your relationship to God, just like anybody else that is a human being. We all get our relationship to God. Our relationship to God is our confidence. And our confidence comes from our relationship to God. Being comfortable with yourself and in your own skin, that comes from competence and being able to relate to God. If you can't relate to God, because God wants to relate to you, and if you can't relate to God, then you're naturally not going to be able to have the confidence in order to do what you need to do and do what you want to do. So we're just at a very precipitous moment in society in which women are desperate to just have a good time and want this and want that. Like, they want their cake and they want to eat it too. And the men are giving it to them. They are. The men are taking that air pump, and the women that are flat, spiritually speaking, they might look good on the outside, but spiritually they're deflated. You know, they are, that's why these women have such inflated egos, is because they have to be inflated by the simps. It's just like inflation when it comes to the fiat system. Okay, when we have the fiat system and the fiat currencies that we're looking at right now, for example, the US dollar is a fiat currency, the fiat system runs on debt. Okay, women, when they're in charge, it runs on debt. Like it runs, women, when they're in charge, when they're the leaders, they don't get power from anyone except through men and their relationship to God. There's an example of the hierarchy, spiritually speaking, which is a spiritual law in the Bible. It goes the Father, Jesus Christ, men, women, children. It's like that for a reason. It's not just because we want the patriarchy. It's like, no, God made it this way, and that's a spiritual law, whether women like it or not. So all women's power, like, oh, female power, you go, girl. It's all debt-based. It's spiritual debt that they're getting from the devil. They're making deals with the devil. They're getting, you can call them spiritual loans in the sense of like financial and spiritual loans, right? They're essentially spiritual loans and contracts that they're making with these demonic entities or the devil himself to, yes, feel powerful for the moment, and yet they're going further and further into hell. And it's our job as people who are actually godly and that have either achieved godlike mastery or that are on the path to godlike mastery to lead or leave these women. We cannot do anything else. These hoes don't want to be saved. They just do not. And you can tell very quickly whether a woman is, you know, either a hoe or a whore herself, because I differentiate between whores and hoes. Whores are women who actually are getting money for their hoe-ness, whereas hoes, they are simply just, I mean, they're just sluts, you know. They just go out there. They just want to do degenerate things because they want to be degenerate. At least someone like Bonnie Blue, who's, well, like even just thinking about it makes me kind of nauseated and sick. But at least she's honest about what she is and who she is. At least she's honest. I have more respect for most whores, more so than I do hoes, because the hoes, they can pretend like they're this traditional woman, and in reality, they're not anywhere near. And this is why you have to assume that every woman is probably just manipulating you, because they probably are. And unless you can lead her out of it and just show that you're not going to be manipulated, and I've gotten to the point where this becomes very natural. And I've realized that it's just simply a numbers game at this point. For the godly man who has achieved self-mastery and godlike mastery, it is simply a numbers game at the end of the day to cultivate and create a relationship with a woman or a woman with a man. The woman, I genuinely believe women cannot be on the path to godlike mastery without a positive mindset man in her life. Look at any woman out there. Is that woman in a positive mind? Maybe apart from nuns, but even then, they have a relationship to God. Okay, they're still in relationship to something higher than them. Okay, and it's like, oh, well, are you saying that men are better than women? Yeah. For the most part, yeah, we are better than women. And it's not to say that women can't know things. Okay, there's some things, like I just learned about, I've never heard of this, the silver-tongued pharaoh. Never heard about this silver-tongued pharaoh. And apparently the ancient Egypt emperors would, you know, they would take golden powder and paint themselves with gold as an emulation of them being like gods, right? Which is pure idolatry and blasphemy. But nonetheless, it's a very interesting thing. And then I learned from this woman today, she was talking about the silver-tongued pharaoh, and she asked me if I, like, do you know why this happened? I said, no, I don't know. Because I'm not going to pretend like I do if I don't. That's just, if, that's what's so crazy is, you know, and then they'll like feel they get to, impart this like knowledge or wisdom onto you. And sometimes it's actually very interesting, right? But that doesn't, just because you might know something different than me doesn't mean that you're better. Okay, I've been introduced to many different types of music because of women in the past as well. And that's one of the beautiful things about being in a relationship. Not just, like not just with business or romantically, but just generally speaking, you get introduced to different types of things. And I think that that's great. I think that that's fantastic, because I wouldn't have been even exposed to that kind of stuff if it weren't for those women. Just like they wouldn't be exposed to certain kinds of things if it weren't for me. So we work better together as men and women, but nobody is winning this gender war. And women have chosen violence. We didn't choose this. We didn't want this. And yet this is where it's come, because we've given them so much power. We've given them so much. We've just given them our balls. And then we've wondered where our balls go. And it's like, you fucking simps. Excuse my French. But that's exactly how I feel. It's like, you guys are freaking idiots. Like, I get it. I understand that, it's a challenging thing, but come on, man. Some of these dudes are like 40, 50 years old and they're still paddling upstream. And it's like, what are you doing? Did your balls really drop off? Or where are they? Like, who did you give them to? And I've heard too many men who are married talk about like, oh yeah, like that's the one argument that I made that I actually won in 50 years. Ho ho ho. Or, oh yeah, she finally put out after a month last night. Ho ho ho. It's like, what the Well, look, okay, that brings up an important point. Do you know why women use intimacy as a form of control in a relationship? Because she doesn't care about you as much as you care about her. Women, when they actually want you, dude, they want you. Okay, they want you. In fact, I would say, as a man who has achieved godlike mastery, if you have achieved godlike mastery, you have women wanting to be with you more than you want to be with the women. That just is what it is. And I remember the first time that I attracted a woman that I considered a 10. And I was like, holy crap. Like, this is like, I'm on. Like, for me, it felt like I was with Jessica Alba. For me, it was like, holy shit. Like, I'm the man, like, and but then after a while, it's just like, oh yeah, there's Anne Hathaway. It's like, oh yeah, there's Rihanna. It's like, okay, yeah, and I get to pick and choose basically which woman that I want, and they just all are attractive. But it's not really. It doesn't have that like flair anymore. It doesn't have that like, oh. It just is like, oh yeah, yeah. Why wouldn't you want me? Why wouldn't you? I'm confident. I love who I am. I love my life, and yeah, I'm not perfect, but I love who I am, and I've got a lot of good stuff going for me. And I don't need a vacation because I love my life so much, even though it's challenging. Like, what kind of woman wouldn't want that kind of a life where she has the opportunity to be closer to God, have a good time. And when I say have a good time, I don't mean like sexual activity, okay? Because I make it very clear with women that I do not do flings. And if we're ever going to be intimate, it's because we're going to have a child together. I am not going to be intimate with a woman unless I'm planning to have a child with her. That is just my standard and my principle. I'm not going to do that. And I'm not really one for marriage. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't be or that you whatever. I'm just saying that, because I speak about marriage in the legalistic way, because there's a spiritual marriage, which I adhere to, but I do not adhere to the legalized marriage system that is being provoked today. And I also think and have still considered a large amount of possibilities on why it is unreasonable to ask a woman to make a vow to you as a man. Because as the Bible talks a lot about, there's no instance that I have yet seen And people have tried to bring up scriptures in the past, recently even, about how, oh yeah, well, women will make a vow to their husband. It's like, well, okay, that. And if you look at the actual context there, the woman's making a vow to God, not to the man. But the man does make a vow to a woman. Well, that's very interesting. Why would God ask us as men to make a vow to a woman, but not the woman to the man? But he would ask the woman to make a vow to God, to himself. That's something very interesting to think about. Okay, so women really at the end of the day, we as men just have to realize that they're creatures of emotion. And yes, as men, we want the logical thing, but we have to recognize that women are really good at telling stories. They're really good at it. I've had women in the past who wanted to break me spiritually, and yet they come disguised as an angel of light. Just like the Bible talks about how the devil comes disguised as an angel of light. And the only way that you can go around that is reframe the story in your mind. Because I know a lot of guys in the past that I've talked to in one-on-one sessions where they basically say to themselves, like, oh yeah, like, I can't get over this woman. She broke me. Like, internally, she did this, she did that. And it's like, bro, do you hear yourself? You're literally giving her power. You're in your mindset alone, you're giving her power. Instead, you could say something like, she tried to break me, because she probably did. It's the truth, right? But you want the story. A lot of you men want the story where you're the victim because, oh, well, that way you have to, you get to blame somebody. But that's the thing, is it's not about blame here. It's about responsibility and accountability and ensuring that you're the one who's going to be in control of your own life. Recently, I've been looking into dual citizenship, just out of everything that's going on in the United States and everything with the Somali freaking like $4 trillion worth of taxpayer dollars just vanish out of thin air. And nobody's getting arrested. Nobody's being like interviewed or like there's no kind of investigation. But $4 trillion are missing out of the Somali scandal. People, if you don't know, you'll have to look it up. But it's just crazy, right? Like, this is the kind of stuff that's crazy that's going on in the world. And so what can we do? What can we do about it? Well, we can start playing the system to play the system. And this involves, and I'm not saying to be a passport bro, because that's what some people might think that I'm saying here, is to go out and go overseas, be a passport bro. It's not what I'm saying. Being a passport bro is not going to save you in my estimation. But it's about being strategic and about understanding what actually is going on in this world and what's actually going on, and to move accordingly. To set yourself up for being a strategic operative in the world and really taking your own sovereignty in your own hands with God. So with all that being said, I hope that this message was useful and insightful for you. If you want to sign up for the Godlike Mastery Initiation program that I have, be ensured to know that this is for people with the financial resources as well as the time to invest into something like that. And if you want more research into that and you want to do more research and have an understanding of what exactly is going into that, check out the website that I have in the link in the description box below. I just revamped the website, so everything in the website is new there, so I'm really excited for that. But that's where you're gonna find more information about the Godlike Master Initiation program. Otherwise, schedule a one-on-one with me, or you can check out the Regal Change Academy for free in the free tier, where you have access to the community, or the premium tier where you have access to the group calls as well as the classes that we have in that church and university replacement option that is the Regal Change Academy. So, peace be with you all, and until next time.